How to go the distance. I particularly like this chapter of Philippians. The kind of middle section that Paul talks about here is interesting. Verse 17, he says, "Join with others in following my example, and take note of those who follow the pattern we gave you." So he kind of sets the stage for the first point in our notes about imitation. Who are we imitating? And he says, you can imitate me. And then he goes on, and you can imitate those that are following the pattern we gave you. Kind of letting us know that having a plan is huge if we want to go the distance. Paul's kind of whole context is saying, not that I've already obtained all this, or I've already been made perfect, but I press on toward the goal to win the prize. Kind of that sense that he wants to win the prize. He wants to get through his life knowing that he ran the best he could, that he did the best he could. So he does a couple things in this section. One, he kind of brings our attention to his example and to those that are following the pattern they gave him. Okay, that's the imitation, the positive side of imitation. But then in verse 18, he says something interesting. He says, "For as I have often said before, and now say even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their destiny, the way they'll finish, their destiny is destruction. Their God is their stomach, and their glory is in their shame." And then he says this little phrase which goes to the heart of our attitude study. He says, "Their mind is on earthly things." That's huge. He comes back and reinforces the whole idea of attitude being our frame of mind, and saying that literally the way they're running the race is one that's going to end in destruction because their mind is on earthly things. So our whole time we've been talking in our series about what are we setting our mind on? And if I've got a good example, a good model, someone to imitate, that's a big part of the battle. It's a big part of what gets us through effectively. Interesting story about the 4-minute mile. The 4-minute mile was that standard was broke in 1954 by Roger Bannister. He's kind of a world-class runner and is held up as the first person to break the 4-minute mile. What's interesting is we often don't hear the rest of the story, and the rest of the story is kind of two things that's interesting. One is that Bannister had pace runners, multiple pace runners that were running alongside of him. Had he not had those pace runners, chances are he wouldn't have broke that standard, the 4-minute mile. But because he had those people running along next to him, encouraging, helping him to press forward, to keep going, all of that accomplished the goal. You and I need pace runners. We need people around us that are helping us keep the pace, keep focused on the goal. I love that. The other part of the story that often isn't told is within the first year of Bannister breaking that 4-minute mile, 14 others did as well. It's like, if he can do it, I can do it. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of having others that are in the race with us, that are seeking to be like Jesus as we are. They help us keep the pace. They help us recognize if they can do it, I can do it. Your small group can be exactly that. It's my desire through this whole study that you are finding in community other spiritual runners that are going deeper in their faith, that are falling more in love with Jesus. And by doing that, you will find that you are much more capable of not just running well, but going the distance. Enjoy your study today. Look forward to seeing you this weekend. Take care.